logical step, so I'd make a motion to make application to small claims court to recover the amount owed.
And I'd second it.
Move second, all in favor? And we can
Thank
follow
you.
up on that?
Yeah, we're good.
Thank you. Next one's to discuss possible changes in road opening ordinance.
This would help us make our ordinance conform to some paperwork that we borrowed from the Maine DOT with regards to the installation of underground utilities. As you recall our discussion, the ordinance, as it currently reads, requires that when the pavement has been disturbed, the work beneath the pavement is complete, and the pavement is restored to the town's satisfaction, and actually it says the road commissioner's satisfaction, then the full deposit that is calculated on so much a square foot is returned to the party who has the permit. We learned when we began with road opening permits for the natural gas main that the Department of Transportation refunds 90% of the deposit that's taken from people disrupting their pavement, some of which lies in Oakland. So we were using their documents as models, as guidelines, and we executed paperwork between the town and Summit Utilities that is to refund 90% of the deposit that was taken prior to work done in 2013. And we're talking about $250,000 that was secured against work that was done on our town roads, on Country Club and Old Waterville Road. So 10% of that number is easy to calculate. We think that it would be advantageous going forward if the ordinance reflected what you want, if the ordinance and the paperwork matched up. So either I've got to change the paperwork or we've got to change the ordinance, and that's your call. So I took a stab at drafting I didn't want to write this up as a first reading because I didn't think the council had reached that point of wanting to make a first reading of an ordinance change, but I did take the appropriate piece of the ordinance, which is section 8, on a sheet that's in your packet that looks like this, and made some simple changes to reflect what it would look like if you wanted to go the 90% route, which I recommend you do because it's a nice way, I think, to recognize the amount of effort that the town puts into even a job that's completed in a satisfactory manner. And it's similar to what's being done elsewhere. But again, that's there are considerations, I think, that you could make on either side of this. I think we'd be happy to make the ordinance or the paperwork comply with your desires. But it seemed like the council is wise in wanting to have both documents in accord with each other. So I'll stop with that and invite your questions and comments.
I make a motion that we proceed with changing the ordinance as suggested and have a first reading at the municipal council.
Second motion.
I just have one question.
Yep.
Did Summit have any questions concerning the 10% that we kept?
Well, don't forget, the money is still in escrow. They have not asked for the return. That wouldn't come until they view their work completed. So the issue hasn't come up yet. So you're addressing this in advance of the issue, which I think is wise. We did discuss this some months ago, and the decision was to think about it for a while. So it seems like the matter is ripe for your determination, but there hasn't been conversation with them yet about this sum.
Okay.
Motion was made in second, all in favor? Thank you. Item number 7 is to consider naming a representative for MMA annual business meeting.
Annual
voting
business Meeting, pardon me, Mr. Chairman?
A voting member.
A voting member,
Okay,
yeah,
sorry.
a voting member.
Skipped
So
over.
if there's a member of the council who intends to be at the convention, then showing up at this meeting will give you an opportunity to vote.
I'd like to nominate Dan Wrigley. Your second?
Yeah, second it. I run it. Say without cease nominations.
There you go. All in favor, there. Awesome.
I
was
think
quick and easy.
on this one, if I could circulate that for signature, that will save you making another motion to authorize me to do it. Let's see, on the manager's report, I've got the 2 items listed on your agenda, and don't let me forget to bring you up on 2 additional ones once we get those taken care of. Item 1 is to speak with you about a milfoil composting demonstration project. And this item is on the agenda because Councilor Fisher asked at the last meeting if milfoil could be taken to the Oakland transfer station for composting. And John and I discussed the idea, and we thought it might be wise to ask the DEP, which gives us our license to run the transfer station, what they thought of the idea before we started something, and then we'd have to back up somehow. So we have consulted with the DEP. We have their answer. We wanted to consult with you and have your answer and make sure that the council and the DEP, our bosses, are happy with the beginning of a demonstration project next year, which was the way I understood Mark's question. But John is here to participate in the discussion. I know there are others here from the Lake Group to participate in the discussion if you'd like them to. What we did learn from the DEP, though, was that apparently there is not currently any sort of a protocol for the handling of milfoil on the books. They thought that it would be nice if the state of Maine had such things, and they were interested in helping with a demonstration project here in Oakland to help them determine how best to manage this thing. I spoke with Mark King at the Maine DEP, and he said that there are some concerns that this stuff can actually take root on land if it's not handled properly, and knowing that it's an invasive species in the lakes, you know, we want to make sure we don't create any mistakes by mistake, you know, and plant this stuff or replant this stuff after somebody's gone to all the trouble to get it out of the lakes and hopefully put an end to it. So their offer to help with technical advice seemed useful. John got a place where this could happen. And I think the people from the Lake Group are here to speak in favor of allowing this to happen, but I think it should only happen if the Oakland Town Council thinks it's a good idea.
I think it's a great idea to work with the DEP on a project like this, because we'll get more help from them as we go on to get rid of the milfoil. We assist them in this project, I would think.
If we get their back in, it'll be huge.
I think it'd be worthwhile.
Especially if they're gonna sponsors good working relationship.
Yeah, they offered to help too if there was any milfoil around that people had removed already. They said that they would assist if there was any interest in having their consultation without any penalties or anything like that, that they just wanted to be helpful. I'll pass that along because I think that is the spirit that they're working in right now. But certainly we didn't want to arrive at a situation if we start a project and then them come upon us next summer and say, what's this, how come you didn't ask us why you're doing it wrong, you know, kind of thing. We want to avoid that, and I think we are avoiding that with this conversation.
I think it's a great idea, and I know that we have people in the audience that have questions too.
Has DEP provided a protocol for the process, the control, the management of the composting of this, or is it something that we're developing? How is the plan going to take effect, and what are our responsibilities? And I guess my concern would be who's making sure, or who's giving us the protocol to go by to make sure this is worked right?
Well, we've got the winter to develop that. We've got the place, and I guess the Lake Groups have the milfoil, but we're gonna ask the DEP to make sure that we're putting it on the ground and adding the right amount of whatever it is they want to add to digest this stuff at a high enough temperature so it kills it. But that's something that would be determined, but with them as opposed to without them.
So basically, we're gonna be following DEP's guidelines.
That's right.
for this
That's the way you understand it too, John?
Yes.
In conjunction with this item, there's a letter at your place that Mike Willie emailed over to me this afternoon. And Mike, you wanted to speak about the contents of the letter. Would you like to do that now?
Yes, thank you. This isn't directly related to this issue on the composting of the milfoil, but I thought it would be, since we were working this issue in parallel with this discussion on the composting of the milfoil, I thought it would be good to get this in front of the council tonight, and that is that we have been working in parallel to our other activities on the lake with BRC to try to clarify roles and responsibilities, because over the years, there's been some confusion with the different towns. We worked with Oakland, Belgrade, and Sydney on the milfoil activities on the lake. There's been some confusion about what BRC, the Belgrade Regional Conservation Alliance, is doing, and what the Friends of Messalonski, the Lake Association associated with Messalonski Lake and the Belgrade Stream, are doing. So we have completed discussions with BRCA and clarified those roles and responsibilities, and that's what's in the letter for you. So basically, I'll just summarize it. Friends of Messalonski is going to take direct responsibility for all of the milfoil mitigation activities and water quality issues associated with Messalonski Lake and the Belgrade Stream from Wings Mills Dam out. And we'll obviously be working with BRCA and other associations where it makes sense to do that. The letter explains a little bit about the reasons for that, but basically it's because we have an extensive problem. It needs focus, and the Friends of Messalonski has put together the infrastructure, the equipment, the resources, the funding to do that. BRCA has a little bit of different relationship with other lake associations, but that's primarily because of the differences in the kinds of problems that they're dealing with versus what we're dealing with. So when we come to the town now, we'll be coming together for these various funding issues. We'll make it very clear who's doing what they're doing, what projects are going on, what funding is required, and what we're asking you for. So I don't know how you felt, but as being involved with the Lake Association for many years, I always felt uncomfortable because we could never really explain that very well to you when we did that. Hopefully that'll be clear now. There's some more detail in the letter that you can read. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
No questions?
Thank you.
Don?
The milfoil that you want to try to compost, where's that coming from? Is it the big stockpile they was talking about in the papers in Belgrade?
Well, in Messalonski, it's coming out of the lake. I mean,
Well, I assumed we had some, but I guess I was just a little bit concerned about we're gonna be transporting milfoil all over between all these lakes into the Oakland area?
no. Well, I don't know. That I don't know. I mean, I can speak for Messalonski. What we're doing and what we had done this in the past. When we started the milfoil program, we actually transported it from the lake here to the landfill, and the town of Oakland helped us do that. And in the recent past, and this year when we did, we actually removed over 40,000 pounds of milfoil out of the lake. We transported it to a private field where it's being composted now. Now, to Don's question, the DEP has a protocol and requirements, and they monitor what we do to get all of the milfoil out of the lake properly. So up until the point it comes out of the lake, they've set those protocols. What we're talking about here is what happens after that, and they haven't done that. So this would be a experiment in that part of the removal process.
And I guess going along with John's question, obviously, if this is successful, which I don't have any reason to think it wouldn't be, but would we be looking at a project that would in fact cover the area lake associations as opposed to some other communities, Gardner, Winthrop, who have lakes that say, well, we got some milfoil, we'd like to bring it to your site. That may or may not be attractive, basically for the reason I think John's thinking that when you transport it, that's how it gets in the lakes, by people transporting it. So we may want to limit that. We may want to have just one entity providing the milfoil, it might be the DEP is going to designate it if they find milfoil in different lakes, and right now there's so little found in other lakes, it's samples usually, and they find a small cluster. The majority of it is in Meslonsky Lake, so maybe the DEP would be responsible to designate who in fact in our area could be transporting it. And it may be the Friends of Meslonsky, which would be the only entity that could transfer to the site.
I'd just like to add on a little bit. In terms of the other lake associations, we're the only ones in Belgrade watershed that are collecting up here. There are approximately 19 groups with TASH operations going on. The other majority of milfoils being harvested comes out of Sebago. And this is going to be interesting because all of us are going to be involved in this. So this is sort of a new territory. And so I share the concerns, as we all share the concerns about the transport of this. And so it's most likely that each organization that does it will have their own spot. They won't be coming from Sebago to here or vice versa. And we are the only ones essentially that are doing it. So there's nobody else really between here and Sebago. And for example, groups like Arrowhead, they're running 2 boats full-time in the summer. And they've got a huge amount. So they're going to have to come in. They're going to have to come up with a plan with DEP, just like we are.
Mr. Jordan?
Tell me something, what are they gonna do with this compost after they get it? They're gonna give it to the people?
I would have to say so, yeah. That's where I would go. If it's this
Are
people
we, are we liable for this?
Can I
Nobody's
answer that
never
again?
said anything.
What happens generally is, and John's probably more knowledgeable, but in the past, it's a matter of heat and duration. And so it registers the seed environment, it can't reproduce. But it does produce a very nitrogen-rich compost, so.
You're guaranteeing it then
No,
it won't
we
be
can't
bad.
guarantee anything, but.
In other
this
words,
is a
if I
benefit.
come there and I get compost,
That's right, yeah.
and it affects my ground, who's liable for it?
I think this demonstration project is gonna find out whether this will happen or not. That's what I understood from the thing, is they're trying to find out with this demonstration project, what this is gonna be afterwards. If it's still a viable plant to put in somewhere, they're not gonna let it out of there.
My answer to that question would be, if you make a determination that you wanna put that compost on your garden, you're responsible. If you have concerns, don't.
It's free.
But the whole point of the exercise was to try and render it safe and make a good product that people want. Right now, people take the compost from your facility, they put it on their gardens, they make things grow, and they're happy. But I don't think we're giving them any guarantee that there's nothing in there that could possibly do anybody any harm.
Hang right on just a second, John.
I lost my train of thought there. There isn't any concern where this site is close in proximity to McGraw Pond and Salmon
Oh, no,
Lake,
it's
and
gonna be right up
you're
at the,
uphill from it?
I suppose it's gonna be right up at our facility. We've got a special area just for compost. And what I was thinking about doing, I don't even know how they're gonna bring it to us. I don't know anything about it, just from what I hear.
Sound like there's
It's
lots
gonna
of
be
in there
wet.
already.
So I think, no, it's not here. But I think we ought to set it off to a side, up at the transfer station in the compost area, so it can dry. Now, I suppose, this is the time of year you guys get the milfoil?
We're through harvesting for this year.
When are you done?
We try and start, it all depends on the budget for the year. We did 6 weeks this year, we might be able to go 10 next.
That would take you in a wet month,
And we try and
End of
start before mid-June, just before mid,
to the end of August.
well, June, July, that's,
But
you know.
what we do up there is everybody comes in with a spring cleanup. And they end up the middle of July, middle of August sometime. And then we'll clean up that whole area and set it off to one side, where I've got it now. Now we're gonna have the fall cleanup. And what we do with the fall cleanup is we'll take all of those fresh leaves that's just been dropped, we'll take them and set them in a designated area in the compost area. And we'll take some of that spring compost and put it on top of it. My thoughts was the milfoil, as it comes in, we can set it off to the side to kind of dry it. So now, when I'm mixing the fall and the spring, that's around December, the end of November, we could put some of the fall leaves on the ground and put this milfoil on top of that, and then put the spring on top of that where it will cook the best. And you gotta remember, if we get that this year, let's say, it's gonna be 3 years before it's passed out, because it's gotta be kept turned. It's gonna be 3 years.
My concern, I guess, what I was getting at is, you're very close to Salmon Lake and Messalonsky. If any of that, I don't know, get tracked back out
You know
onto
where it
that
is,
darn
Joe.
road, and there's a runoff, a hard dump on a runoff, where's it going?
Oh, yeah.
You know,
But once it gets to the
I guess I
compost
question
pile,
the
it's not
location.
going
I
anywhere.
question the location.
Yeah, the
This
likely.
is why we're asking for the guidance from the main DEP.
That's right.
Yeah.
I don't think the location's gonna be such a problem. This stuff is what I know about it. During the wintertime, it settles, it goes away, right? It's more or less killed, so to speak, but it reactivates itself in warm water. We've got it down back in Messalonsky Stream, had it down there since I was a little kid. And you can't even run a boat through it. But when you take your boats and you go from one body of water to another, some people inspect their boats, some don't. Some have a keel on the bottom that will fill up with water as a ballast type thing. Others get water inside the boat, and I don't think anybody's checking the water that stays inside the motor. Maybe they are, but
There you
when I was
go.
down there watching, they weren't. Stuff gets chewed up, and every little piece of that plant will grow. If you do that, put it in I did this as a project when I was at school, way back when. I think it was like a 5th grade. And every little piece of that stuff will grow roots if it's in the water. Once you get it out, it's like, it almost disappears. It just dries up to almost like paper thin, and there's nothing to it, really.
Then you put it in water, will it grow again?
I
or
don't
is it
know
dead?
that. I don't know that. That's one thing you probably have to find out.
Don?
And I guess that's why I would go back to what Peter's saying also on the DEP, for both transportation and for composting. And I'd be very careful, overly careful, and maybe not even give out composting. I don't know what the life is, how long it takes to decay it, but I'm sure that when people pick up some compost, they probably have some material in there that grows. And the last thing we wanna do is have somebody take some composted milfoil that has some fresh milfoil or something that hasn't completely died, take it to their garden by the lake, have it start washing into the water and create milfoil. So, you know, I do think we have to be very cautious, and I think the DEP is gonna give us the guidance of how to compost it, how long it should be in there, whether we should ever give it away. Maybe they'll say, no, you compost it and bury it.
To support what Don has just said, remember the DEP's entire interest in this is to try and develop safety protocols so that these terrible things do not happen. So that is the whole purpose of the project, is to prevent bad things from happening.
Has anybody ever gotten a hold of like Unity College that does these kind of projects and stuff like that to find, does anybody do any of that?
I'm not picking on you, and I know you.
Yeah, we're looking into that right now.
How about manpower?
But just for a little bit, one of the major reasons for the boat inspections is because some people who have boats, especially from out of state, they can take milfoil home with them on the boat, bring it back the next season, go in the water, and that milfoil will regenerate and grow and create issues. So it is a very
Healthy plant.
yeah, it's a tough one that can survive for a long time, dried or wet. And we just have to be very cognizant of that.
Rest assured, DEP will have a containment system, or however they wanted to do it. They have something for anything else.
I'd make a motion that we proceed with the DEP in this project, this pilot project. We won't get any milfoil anyway until next June, whether we do this or not. So I think by then they'll have
We've got a
the
year to work on it. and see
policy
what-
organized and they'll know what they're doing. So I make a motion we proceed and work with the DEP. They're the ones that regulate our landfill anyway, so I think it's a good project to work with them on.
All in favor?
Thank you very much.
Also, part of the manager's report, there is in your packet a library report for the month of August, which summarizes the summer reading program, and the number of participants, I think, are listed generally on the back of the report to show you the number of kids that came. The picture indicates the kids were having a good time, so I think we'd say that the August program was a successful one, and that report is there for you to read. The other two items that I wanted to bring up under the manager's report, we got a letter from the Kennebec Valley Council of Governments about a hazardous waste drop-off day. This is an event that's been done annually for a number of years now, and the intent would be for this to be on Saturday, October 18th. The drop-off location will be Winslow Public Works, as it's been, I think, the last several, and I think we sent some people over to help with that effort. But it gives the Oakland citizens a chance to get rid of all of these things. TVs are taken, antifreeze, oil, batteries, poisons, swimming pool chemicals, things of that kind that can't be disposed of legally in other ways. We must send in a letter of intent to join that. We have, for the last several years, put a spending cap of $1,500 on that. Last year, we actually went to $1,900. I suggest we put a $2,000 limit on it this year, if you're happy with that. But we thought where the letter did come and we're asked for authorization, that we would ask you if you're willing to participate with that. And I think John would indicate that it is a good program,
It's a good program.
well
People love
attended,
it.
and something that we probably should continue.
You don't burn stuff.
October 18th, it's a Saturday.
I'd make a motion, we put $2,000 in the program this year, and so that citizens can take advantage of that. And they have to sign up ahead of time, right, with you, John?
They do,
Yeah.
yes. They have to sign up and tell us what they're bringing.
You have a similar program, don't you? I noticed September
The
20th.
20th, yes, but what that's gonna do, that's gonna put us a step ahead of this hazardous waste. When we get the TVs and the electronics, it comes out of our hazardous waste, $2,000. This is free. When they come up, the guy from New Hampshire's coming to get it and take it away. We don't have to pay nothing, so it's giving us a leg up on that already.
What's going on September 20th is what?
Electronics.
Electronic, like we did in the spring.
Right at our now?
Yeah.
Transfer station.
Transfer
Don't have
station,
no
yeah.
one. That's a swear word. Rita, she's swearing.
Motion made, seconded, all in favor?
Thank you.
Anything electronic? I'm sorry, who seconded?
And the last piece that I wanted to touch on for the manager's report was at the request of Councilor Wrigley, and that was Dana Wrigley, and that was to summarize the paving results for the summer. We have now overlaid Country Club Road, Axtell Terrace, East School Street, the library parking lot, and the police department parking lot. Those were all done under our budget, but because we did use some extra tonnage on Country Club Road to regain the shape that we have, we had to postpone Railroad Street, which was part of our original plan. But by making that adjustment, we were able to bring the total project under budget. It was $134,000, we had budgeted $145,000. So we think we've accomplished the objectives that we hope to with the summer paving program, and hope that you enjoy riding on the new surfaces. That is all I had. There is an item under other business to consider entering executive session for the purpose of screening applications for the town manager position. I don't know, Mr. Chairman, if you have other items from the members that you'd like to bring up while we're still
Anybody
in
come
public
tonight?
session.
Have any further questions? Or- Yes, ma'am.
I was wondering, can citizens be on that committee that overviews the town manager applications? Or could we develop one so that this is at least some?
You already have developed one by voting for the council members. If we did that, we would have how many thousands of people to enter into that? And I'm not trying to be mean. I thank you for your interest, and I truly think it's a great interest. But to do that, they are working, the town manager will be working for the town council. And if I'm speaking wrong or out of turn for anybody up here, then we can talk about it now. But I would believe that it would, for the best interest of the town, that it should remain with the town council. And you have entrusted us to do all these other things, all these other years, and that's where you should stay. Is anybody in disagreement? unanimous decision. Thank you. Sir?
To go along with that, I would say that there'd be people that would apply for that position that wouldn't want a bunch of thousands of people knowing that they applied for it.
It would just
It's a-
clutter it up so much.